The massive alien ships came without warning. One moment Earth's skies were clear and blue. The next moment, giant black shadows covered entire cities. The ships were huge, bigger than mountains. They looked like dark crystals floating in the air. People stopped walking on the streets. Cars pulled over. Everyone looked up at the sky with their mouths open. Children pointed and asked their parents what was happening, but the parents had no answers. Lee Day was fixing a broken machine. On Luna Station when the emergency alarm started going off, he was deep inside the atmospheric processor, covered in grease and sweat. His plasma wrench was sparking against stubborn metal parts that refused to come loose. "Not now," Day muttered. He hit the metal pipe harder with his wrench. "Come on, you stupid piece of junk." The alarms got louder. Red lights flashed everywhere, but Day kept working. He had been fighting with this machine for 6 hours. The air recycling system for the entire station depended on it. If he stopped now, 3,000 people might run out of breathable air. "Day," his supervisor Parkman's voice came through the comm system. "Get out of there. Emergency meeting, in the main hall. 5 more minutes?" Day called back. "I almost got it now, Day." Day sighed and gave the pipe one more hard hit with his wrench. Something clicked inside the machine. The atmospheric processor hummed back to life. Fresh air started flowing through the vents again. There, Day said to himself, everything can be fixed if you hit it hard enough in the right place. He crawled out of the machine and wiped his hands on his dirty coveralls. His sister Lena would laugh if she saw him now. He looked like he had been wrestling with a garbage disposal and lost. The main hall was packed with people when Day arrived. Station workers, miners, technicians, and security guards all stood together watching the big screen. Nobody was talking. Everyone looked scared. On the screen, a tall alien figure stood in what looked like the United Nations building on Earth. The alien had blue-gray skin and 6 arms. Its head was shaped like an upside-down triangle. When it spoke, its voice sounded like metal scraping against metal. "People of Earth," the alien said, "I am Admiral Vextera of the Galactic Hegemony. Your species has been judged." Day frowned. He had never heard of any galactic hegemony. Yesterday, humans thought they were alone in the universe. Today, aliens were making announcements in their capital cities. "For 1,000 years, the hegemony has brought order to this galaxy," the alien continued. "We have united hundreds of worlds under our rule. Now it is your turn." The camera showed human leaders sitting at a big table. They all looked terrified. Some were shaking. The president of Earth Union tried to speak, but no words came out. However, Admiral Vex said, "The hegemony is not without mercy. We offer you the trial of champions. Send us your greatest warrior. If your champion defeats ours, your species may join the hegemony as equals. If your champion loses, your species will surrender completely." A new alien appeared on the screen. This one looked like a giant insect with sharp claws instead of hands. It wore fancy robes covered in glowing symbols. "I am Counselor Zithak," the insect alien said. "The trial of champions is an ancient tradition. 17 species have accepted this challenge. 17 species have lost. Their warriors fell before the might of our champions." The screen showed images of alien worlds. Beautiful cities that had been turned into ruins. Space stations that floated dead and empty. Entire planets where nothing lived anymore. "Your time limit is 72 hours, Admiral Vextera announced. "Choose your champion wisely. This will be your only chance." The transmission ended. The main hall on Luna Station stayed quiet for a long moment. Then everyone started talking at once. Did that really happen? Are we going to die? Who's going to fight for us? Day listened to the worried voices around him. People were scared. They had good reasons to be scared. The aliens had ships the size of cities. They had already conquered 17 other species. And now Earth had 3 days to find someone who could beat their champion. Parkman walked over to Day. "What do you think?" he asked. Day looked at the plasma wrench in his hand. Then he looked at the atmospheric processor he had just fixed. "I think we're in trouble," he said. Big trouble. On Earth, military leaders were already meeting. General Williams spread out files on a table. Each file contained information about Earth's best soldiers, fighters, and athletes. "We need someone who can handle advanced technology," said Dr. Martinez, the head of Earth's science division. "Their champion will probably have weapons we've never seen before." "Speed and strength are important too," added Colonel Peterson. "We should look at our enhanced soldiers, the ones with cybernetic upgrades." They looked through hundreds of files. Olympic athletes who could run faster than cars. Soldiers who had been modified with artificial muscles and reflexes. Scientists who understood alien technology better than anyone else on Earth. But every file seemed inadequate. How do you fight someone who can bend metal with their bare hands? How do you defeat a warrior who has won dozens of battles across the galaxy? Meanwhile, in a research lab in Geneva, Dr. Kim Soo was studying everything the aliens had said. She played their transmission over and over, looking for clues. "The trial of champions?" she muttered. "An ancient tradition. They've done this 17 times before." She pulled up historical data about the conquered species. Each one had sent their obvious choice, their strongest warrior, their smartest general, their most advanced soldier, and each one had lost. Maybe, Dr. Kim Soo said to herself, we're thinking about this wrong. Back on Luna Station, Day had returned to work. The atmospheric processor was running, but other machines needed attention. A mining rig had broken down in Sector 7. The water recycling system was making strange noises, and someone had somehow managed to jam a wrench into the main elevator's motor. Day sighed. It was going to be a long day. He didn't know that down on Earth, computers were scanning through personnel files. He didn't know that his name was about to appear on a very important list. He didn't know that in less than 24 hours, his life would change forever. All he knew was that the fusion coupling in Mining Rig 3 was sparking again, and sparking fusion couplings were dangerous. Everything can be fixed, Day said, picking up his wrench. Let's get to work. Above him, through the transparent dome of Luna Station, the stars looked the same as always, bright, distant, and peaceful. But Day knew that somewhere out there, alien ships were waiting, and in 3 days, one human would have to fight for the survival of their entire species. He just didn't know that human would be him. The journey to Nexus Prime took 18 hours. They spent most of that time staring out the window at stars he had never seen before. The alien space station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a giant metal city floating in space. That's where the trial will happen. Dr. Han, you said, pointing at a massive dome on the station. The Arena of Champions. Colonel Choi Jin handed Day a tablet computer. This is everything we know about your opponent. Day looked at the screen and felt his stomach drop. The alien was called Kethfer the Unyielding. He was 7 feet tall, with metallic blue skin and 4 arms. Each arm ended in claws that could cut through steel. His bioarmor could change and adapt to any weapon used against it. He's fought 43 trials. Dr. Han, you said quietly. He's never lost. Not once. How many people has he killed? Day asked. We don't know. Colonel Choi Jin replied. But the hegemony doesn't keep those records. Day set the tablet down and picked up his plasma wrench. It suddenly seemed very small and useless. When they arrived at Nexus Prime, alien guards escorted them to a waiting area. The guards looked like walking trees with too many eyes. They didn't speak, but their message was clear. Stay here and don't cause trouble. Other aliens filled the corridors. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that Day couldn't tell which end was their head. All of them stared at him as he walked past. Many of them laughed. Look at Earth's champion, one alien said in perfect English. Is this some kind of joke? Maybe humans have a sense of humor after all, another replied. Day ignored them. He was more interested in the station itself. The walls were covered with panels and displays. Cables ran along the ceiling in neat patterns. Everything was connected to everything else. It was like being inside a giant machine. The arena can create any environment, Dr. Hanyu explained as they walked. Deserts, oceans, forests, even space. It changes every few minutes during the trial. How does it work? Day asked. We're not sure. Alien technology is no, Day interrupted. I mean really, how does it work? What makes the environments change? Where does the power come from? How do they control gravity and atmosphere? Dr. Han, you looked confused. Why does that matter? Day didn't answer. His mechanic's brain was already working on the problem. Every machine had weak points. Every system could be understood, and if it could be understood, it could be fixed, or broken. They were taken to a viewing chamber above the arena. The dome was even bigger than it had looked from outside. The floor was flat and gray, waiting for the trial to begin. Admiral Vexthera and Counselor Zithak were already there, along with dozens of other important-looking aliens. They all turned to stare when Day entered. So this is Earth's great warrior, Admiral Vexthera said. Her voice sounded like rocks grinding together. I admit, I expected something more impressive. Counselor Zithak clicked his mandibles in what might have been laughter. Perhaps humans have already given up. This cannot be their true champion. Day looked at his dirty coveralls and his old wrench. Then he looked at the aliens in their fancy uniforms and shiny armor. I'm exactly what I look like, he said. A mechanic who fixes things for a living. You cannot seriously expect to defeat Kethfer with that primitive tool, Admiral Vexthera said, pointing at his wrench. We'll see, Day replied. A new alien entered the viewing chamber. This one was different from the others. It was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow. When it spoke, everyone else went quiet. I am Prime Judge Veltron, the alien said. I will oversee this trial. The rules are simple. 2 champions enter the arena. 1 champion leaves alive. Everything else is permitted. Day swallowed hard. He had hoped there might be rules about not killing each other. The trial begins in 1 hour. Prime Judge Veltron continued. Use this time to prepare yourself, human. Dr. Han, you tried to brief Day on combat tactics, but he wasn't listening. Instead, he was studying the arena through the viewing window. He could see panels in the walls that probably hid projectors. Vents in the ceiling that controlled airflow. Subtle lines in the floor that marked where different systems met. The power conduits run along the outer edge, he said to himself. What? Colonel Choi Jin asked. Nothing, Day said, just thinking out loud. When the hour was up, guards escorted Day to the arena floor. The dome was even more impressive from inside. The walls seemed to stretch up forever. The air hummed with hidden energy. On the other side of the arena, a door opened. Kethver, the unyielding, stepped out, and Day's heart almost stopped. The alien was everything the reports had said, and more. His metallic skin reflected the arena. Lights, his forearms moved with deadly grace. His claws gleamed like swords. When he saw Day, he threw back his head and roared. The sound echoed through the dome like thunder. In the viewing chamber above, aliens cheered and placed bets. None of them were betting on the human. Begin, Prime Judge Veltron's voice boomed. Through speakers, the arena floor suddenly changed. What had been flat gray metal became a rocky landscape with deep crevices and tall stone pillars. The ceiling displayed a red sky with 2 suns. Kethver moved immediately. He was faster than anything that big should be. His claws left deep scratches in the stone as he bounded from rock to rock, heading straight for Day. Day ran. There was no shame in admitting that he was completely outmatched in a straight fight. His only chance was to be smarter than his opponent. He dove behind a stone pillar just as Kethver's claws sliced through the air where his head had been. The stone exploded in a shower of fragments. You cannot hide forever, little human, Kethver roared in perfect English. Face me and die with honor. But Day wasn't interested in honor. He was interested in survival, and as he ran from pillar to pillar, he was also doing something else. He was studying the arena. The rocky landscape looked completely real, but it was all projection and force. Fields, the stones were solid enough to hide behind, but they weren't actually stone. They were energy made to look and feel like stone. Every few minutes, the environment changed. Desert replaced the rocky landscape. Then came a frozen wasteland. Then a thick jungle. Each change happened smoothly and quickly. Kethver adapted to every environment perfectly. In the desert, his bioarmor shifted to reflect heat. In the frozen wasteland, it generated warmth. In the jungle, it changed color to blend with the vegetation. But Day noticed something else. Each time the environment changed, there was a brief moment when the systems reset, a split second when the projectors and force fields flickered, and in that split second, he could see the real arena underneath. It was a machine, an incredibly complex machine, but still just a machine, and Day understood machines. During the jungle phase, Kethver finally cornered him. The alien's claws pinned Day against what looked like a massive tree trunk. You have fought well for such a weak creature, Kethver said. But this ends now. Day looked into the alien's yellow eyes. Then he smiled. You're right, he said. This does end now. Instead of trying to escape, Day did something that surprised everyone. He reached behind the fake tree trunk and found what he was looking for. A maintenance panel hidden behind the projection. His plasma wrench sparked against alien circuits as he tore into the arena's control systems. 24 hours had passed since the alien ultimatum. Earth's leaders were running out of time and ideas. In a secret meeting room deep underground in Geneva, the champion selection committee sat around a big table covered with files. Coffee, cups, and empty food containers were scattered everywhere. Nobody had slept much. General Williams rubbed his tired eyes. We've looked at every possibility, he said. Enhanced soldiers, Olympic champions, martial arts masters, even our best pilots. Nothing feels right. Dr. Martinez nodded sadly. The aliens said they've beaten 17 species already. Their champion must be incredibly powerful. Colonel Peterson slammed his hand on the table. There has to be someone. We can't just give up. Dr. Kim Soo had been quiet for most of the meeting. She sat in the corner, reading reports about the conquered alien worlds. Finally, she spoke up. What if we're thinking about this completely wrong, she said. Everyone turned to look at her. Every species that lost probably sent their obvious choice, Dr. Kim Soo continued. Their strongest warrior, their best fighter, their most advanced soldier, and they all lost. So what are you suggesting? General Williams asked. Dr. Kim Soo stood up and walked to the whiteboard. She wrote 2 words, human strength. What makes humans special? She asked. It's not that we're the strongest or the fastest. Other species are probably better at those things. She wrote more words on the board. Adaptability, stubbornness, problem solving. Humans survive because we adapt, Dr. Kim Soo said. We find solutions to impossible problems. We refuse to give up. Maybe we should send someone who represents those qualities. General Williams frowned. You want to send someone who's not a warrior? I want to send someone who's essentially human. Dr. Kim Soo replied. At that moment, a junior officer named Lieutenant Park ran into the room. He looked embarrassed and nervous. Sorry to interrupt, Lieutenant Park said, but we have a computer problem. The personnel database is showing some strange results. Dr. Martinez sighed. We don't have time for computer problems right now. It's about the champion selection search, Lieutenant Park explained. The computer was supposed to find candidates with combat experience, but there's a glitch. It's also showing maintenance workers and technicians. General Williams was about to dismiss the report when Dr. Kim Soo held up her hand. Wait, she said. Show us the results. Lieutenant Park connected his tablet to the big screen. A list of names appeared. Most were soldiers and athletes, as expected, but scattered throughout the list were other names. Engineers, mechanics, repair technicians. One name caught Dr. Kim Soo's attention: Lee Day, Luna Station Atmospheric Systems Specialist. She clicked on his file. The screen showed a picture of a young man in dirty coveralls, holding a plasma wrench. His hair was messy and he had grease stains on his face. He looked like he had just finished a hard day's work. Lee Day, Dr. Kim Soo read aloud. Age 28, born in Seoul, moved to Luna Station 5 years ago, works in maintenance and repair, no military training, no combat experience. Why would the computer select him? Colonel Peterson asked. Dr. Kim Soo scrolled through Day's work records. Look at this. 6 months ago, the main power plant on Luna Station had a critical failure. Engineers said it would take 3 weeks to fix. Day fixed it in 2 days using spare parts and creative thinking. She found another report. Last year, a solar storm damaged Luna Station's communication array. The manufacturer said they needed to replace the entire system. Day repaired it with mining equipment and household tools. More reports appeared on the screen. Each one showed Day solving problems that seemed impossible. He kept critical systems running when everyone else gave up. He found solutions where others saw only failure. He's never lost, Dr. Kim Soo said, quietly. Every problem he's faced, he's solved. Every system he's worked on, he's kept running. General Williams shook his head. But he's not a fighter. Neither were humans when we started, Dr. Kim Soo replied. We became fighters because we had to. We became survivors because we refused to quit. The debate continued for hours. Some committee members thought Dr. Kim Soo was crazy. Others began to see her point. Finally, General Williams made the decision. We're out of time and out of options, he said. Computer glitch or not, Lee Day is our best shot at representing what makes humans special. On Luna Station, Day was having the worst day of his career, not because of alien invasions or galactic empires, because the waste recycling system had backed up, and now the entire station smelled terrible. He was shoulder deep in pipes, trying to clear a massive blockage, when his comm unit beeped. Day, report to Docking Bay 7 immediately, Park Min's voice said. I'm busy, Day called back. Unless the station is exploding, it can wait. Earth military officials want to see you. Day stopped working. Earth military didn't visit Luna Station. Ever. What do they want with me? Just get down there. Now. Day crawled out of the pipes and wiped his hands on his coveralls. He looked terrible and smelled worse. His hair was stuck to his head with sweat and his clothes were covered in things he didn't want to identify. Docking Bay 7 was usually empty except for supply ships. Today, it held a sleek military transport. 2 people in crisp uniforms stood waiting, a tall man with serious eyes and a woman carrying a tablet computer. Lee Day, the man asked. Yeah, that's me, Day replied. Look. If this is about the modified fusion couplings in Sector 12, I can explain. I'm Colonel Choi Jin, the man interrupted. This is Dr. Han Yu. We need to talk. Dr. Han Yu looked at Day and tried not to show her disappointment. The man in front of her looked nothing like a champion. He was average height, thin from long hours of work, and currently covered in unidentifiable substances from the waste recycling system. Mr. Lee, she said carefully, how would you feel about representing humanity in a combat trial? Day blinked. What? Colonel Choi Jin explained the situation quickly. The alien ultimatum, the trial of champions, Earth's desperate need for someone to fight their greatest warrior. And you want me? Day asked. I fix machines. I don't fight aliens. That's exactly why we want you, Dr. Han Yu said. You solve impossible problems. You never give up. You find ways to make things work when everyone else fails. Day looked at the plasma wrench in his hand, then he looked at the military transport. What happens if I say no? Nothing. Colonel Choi Jin said honestly, you go back to your job. But in 72 hours, aliens will decide the fate of every human being alive. Day thought about his sister Lena, studying engineering at the Lunar Academy. He thought about Young Ho, the old mechanic who had taught him everything he knew. He thought about the 3,000 people on Luna Station who depended on him to keep their air clean and their lights on. If I do this, Day said slowly, and I lose, everyone dies. Yes, Dr. Han, you said. And if I don't do this, someone else fights and probably loses anyway. Yes. Day sighed and looked at his wrench again. It was old and dented, but it had never failed him. Everything can be fixed if you hit it hard enough in the right place, he muttered. What was that? Colonel Choi Jin asked. Nothing, Day said. Just something I tell myself when things look impossible. He took one last look at Luna Station through the docking bay window. Somewhere up there, Young Ho was probably wondering where his best mechanic had gone. His sister Lena was probably studying for her next exam, completely unaware that her brother was about to become humanity's only hope. All right, Day said finally. I'll do it. But I want to make one thing clear. What's that? Dr. Han, you asked. I'm not a warrior, Day said. I'm a mechanic. If this alien wants to fight a warrior, he's going to be disappointed. He's fighting someone who fixes things for a living. Colonel Choi Jin smiled for the first time in days. Maybe that's exactly what we need. As the military transport left Luna Station, Day pressed his face against the window and watched his home grow smaller. In 48 hours, he would face an alien champion who had never lost a battle. But right now, all he could think about was whether he had remembered to turn off the atmospheric processor before leaving. Everything can be fixed, Day replied, his wrench sparking deeper into the control panel. Which means everything can be broken. The jungle environment flickered. Trees became transparent for a moment before solidifying again. Kethver stumbled. As the ground beneath his feet briefly turned into empty air. In the viewing chamber, aliens were shouting in confusion. Stop him, Admiral Vexera commanded. But Prime Judge Veltron held up a hand. The rules state that everything is permitted within the arena. The human is not breaking any laws. Day's modifications began to take effect. The arena's environmental controls were fighting against his sabotage, but his years of fixing impossible problems had taught him exactly where to hit and how hard. The jungle environment collapsed completely. For a moment, Kethver and Day stood in the real arena, a simple metal chamber filled with projectors, gravity generators, and atmosphere processors. Then the arena's backup systems kicked in. The environment shifted to an urban setting, buildings, streets, and vehicles. But something was wrong. The buildings flickered between different styles. The vehicles changed color randomly. The sky couldn't decide if it was day or night. You're damaging sacred technology, Kethver roared. He swung his claws at Day, but the human was already moving. Day had spent his whole life crawling through maintenance shafts and behind equipment panels. He knew how to move in tight spaces. He rolled under what looked like a parked car and emerged near a fake building that was really another control station. Sacred technology. My foot, Day muttered, tearing into more circuits. It's just a fancy hologram projector with delusions of grandeur. His sabotage was spreading through the arena systems like a virus. The urban environment began to break down. Buildings turned inside out. Streets folded into impossible angles. The fake sky showed 3 different environments at once. Kethver was strong and fast, but he was designed to fight in stable environments. The constantly shifting, malfunctioning arena confused his bioarmor. His adaptive systems couldn't figure out what to adapt to. Stand still and fight, the alien warrior demanded. No thanks, Day replied. I've got work to finish. He found the main power coupling for the arena's gravity control. It was hidden inside what looked like a decorative fountain. Day's wrench bit into alien metal, and suddenly gravity became optional. Kethver, who weighed over 400 pounds, found himself floating helplessly in the air. His claws scraped uselessly at nothing. His bioarmor tried to compensate, but there was nothing to push against. Day, who had worked in zero gravity many times on Luna Station, moved with practiced ease. He pushed off walls and fake vehicles, always staying just out of reach of the floating alien warrior. This is impossible, Kethver shouted. No warrior has ever fought like this. I'm not a warrior, Day replied, reaching another control panel. I told you, I'm a mechanic. His next modification sent industrial coolant flooding through the atmosphere system. The temperature in the arena dropped 50 degrees in 10 seconds. Kethver's bioarmor, already confused by the malfunctioning environment, began to freeze up. But Kethver was tougher than Day had expected. Even with his armor malfunctioning and gravity working against him, the alien warrior managed to grab onto a fake building and pull himself toward solid ground. Enough, Kethver roared. I will end this now. He tore off pieces of his own bioarmor and threw them at Day like grenades. The armor fragments exploded on impact, filling the air with shrapnel and smoke. Day barely avoided the blasts, but he couldn't keep running forever. His sabotage had given him an advantage, but Kethver was still incredibly dangerous. The alien was stronger, faster, and had centuries of combat experience. As the smoke cleared, Day found himself cornered again. This time there were no control panels within reach, no maintenance shafts to crawl through, just an angry alien warrior with murder in his yellow eyes. Kethver approached slowly, savoring his victory. You fight with tricks and deception, he said, but in the end, strength always wins. Day looked at his plasma wrench. It was just a tool, a simple device for tightening bolts and welding metal. Against bioarmor and razor-sharp claws, it was almost useless. Almost. You know what your problem is? Day said, not backing away. What? Kethver asked, raising his claws for the killing blow. You think like a warrior? Always looking for the biggest, strongest, most obvious target. Day smiled. But mechanics think different. We look for the small things, the weak points, the places where everything connects. Kethver struck with all 4 arms at once. But instead of dodging, did something unexpected. He stepped forward, directly into the attack. The alien's claws scraped against his coveralls, leaving long tears in the fabric. But Day wasn't trying to avoid the claws. He was aiming for something else entirely. His plasma wrench, crackling with energy, struck exactly where Kethver's bioarmor connected to his nervous system. It was a tiny spot, barely visible beneath the metallic skin. The neural interface that allowed the armor to respond to the warrior's thoughts. The strike was precise, perfectly placed, and delivered with all the force that Day could manage. The plasma energy disrupted the connection between alien biology and alien technology. Kethver's bioarmor went completely insane. Systems that were designed to protect him began attacking him instead. Adaptive mechanisms turned destructive. The armor that had made him unbeatable became a trap he couldn't escape. The alien warrior collapsed, screaming as his own technology turned against him. He wasn't dead, but he was completely helpless. His bioarmor had locked up completely, trapping him in a metallic prison. The arena fell silent except for Kethver's muffled struggles. The environmental systems, damaged beyond repair, finally gave up and shut down. The dome returned to its original state, a simple metal chamber. Day stood over his fallen opponent, plasma wrench still in his hand. His coveralls were torn and he was bleeding from several cuts, but he was alive, and he had one dot in the viewing chamber above. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Finally, Prime Judge Veltron's voice echoed through the arena. Kethver, the unyielding, has been defeated. The human is victorious. The silence in the viewing chamber stretched on and on. Hundreds of aliens stared down at the arena where a human mechanic stood over their greatest champion. Some looked confused, others looked angry, a few looked terrified. Finally, Counselor Zithak found his voice. This trial is invalid. He clicked loudly. The human did not defeat Kethver in honorable combat. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the alien observers. Admiral Vexthera stood up from her seat, her 6 arms gesturing. Angrily, the human used trickery and sabotage, she declared. This is not how warriors fight. But Prime Judge Veltron remained calm. The silver-skinned alien studied the arena below with ancient eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of law. The rules of the Trial of Champions are clear and simple, he said. 2 champions enter. 1 champion emerges victorious. No other restrictions apply. But tradition demands, Counselor Zithak began. Tradition is not law, Prime Judge Veltron interrupted. For 1,000 years, the hegemony has used the Trial of Champions to determine the fate of species. In all that time, the rules have never changed. Everything is permitted within the arena. Down in the arena, Day was trying to help Keth. The alien warrior was still trapped in his malfunctioning bioarmor, but he was conscious and breathing. Day had disabled him, not killed him. Hold still, Day said, examining the armor with his mechanic's eye. I think I can get you out of this. Thing Kethver's yellow eyes stared at him in confusion. Why would you help me? I tried to kill you. Because it's the right thing to do, Day replied. His plasma wrench sparked against the armor's locking mechanisms. Besides, this isn't your fault. You were just doing your job. It took 20 minutes, but Day finally managed to free Kethver from his prison of malfunctioning technology. The alien warrior sat up slowly, rubbing feeling back into his arms. I have never been defeated, Kethver said quietly. I do not understand how you did this. I didn't fight you, Day explained. I fought your equipment. Your armor made you strong, but it also made you dependent. When the armor failed, you failed with it. Kethver considered this. You are not what I expected from Earth's greatest warrior. I'm not Earth's greatest warrior, Day said. I'm just a guy who fixes things for a living. In the viewing chamber, the argument was getting louder. Alien representatives from conquered worlds were demanding answers. Some were even questioning whether the hegemony had the right to rule at all. Ambassador Yun, the human diplomatic representative, was frantically trying to take notes, as dozens of species expressed interest in something called the human way. What exactly is this human way? Asked a delegate from Kepler 442b. Her species looked like walking flowers with too many petals. Problem solving through intelligence and persistence, Ambassador Yun replied, working together instead of just fighting. Finding solutions that don't require violence. Impossible, Admiral Vexthera declared. Order can only be maintained. Through strength, the weak must submit to the strong. This is the natural way. But other voices were beginning to speak up. A representative from the Vega system stood up. His people had been conquered 40 years ago. What if there's another way, he asked. What if the human is right? What if strength isn't the only path to success? More aliens began to murmur agreement. The representatives of conquered worlds had been silent for so long that the hegemony had forgotten they could speak at all. Dr. Han. You watched from the human observation area with growing amazement. Day hadn't just won a trial, he had started something bigger. A conversation that the galaxy hadn't had in centuries. Colonel Choi Jin was receiving messages from Earth. The news of Day's victory was spreading through human space like wildfire. But more importantly, it was spreading through alien space too. The Centauri colonies want to establish formal relations, he reported. 3 different species have requested cultural exchange programs, and the Tau Ceti Confederation is asking about human engineering techniques. Meanwhile, guards had finally entered the arena to escort Day back to the viewing chamber. As he walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime, aliens stared at him differently than before. Some still looked hostile, but others seemed curious. Did you know the arena could be sabotaged? Asked a young alien who looked like a cat with wings. Everything's a machine, Day replied, and every machine has weak points. You just have to know where to look. When he reached the viewing chamber, Prime Judge Veltran was waiting for him. Lee Day of Earth, the ancient alien said formally. You have won the trial of champions. According to our laws, your species is now free to choose its own path. Thank you, Day said simply. However, Prime Judge Veltran continued, you have also created a problem for us. Many species are now questioning the way things have always been done. They want to know about this human way of solving problems. Day looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. Some were angry, some were confused, and some were hopeful. The human way isn't complicated, he said. We try to understand things before we fight them. We look for solutions that work for everyone, and we never give up, even when things seem impossible. These are not the words of a warrior, Admiral Vextera said coldly. No, Day agreed. They're the words of someone who fixes things for a living. 6 months later, Lee Day was back on Luna Station, covered in grease, and arguing with Park Min about repair schedules. The atmospheric processor in Section 12 is making that noise again, Park Min said, looking at his clipboard. What noise? Day asked, not looking up from the plasma conduit he was repairing. You know the noise? The clicking noise that means it's about to explode. Day sighed and set down his wrench. Everything makes noise before it explodes. The trick is knowing which noises to worry about. It was a normal conversation on a normal day, except that outside Luna Station's windows, the galaxy had changed completely. The galactic hegemony still existed, but it was no longer the same organization that had threatened Earth 6 months ago. The trial of champions had exposed cracks in their authority that could not be repaired. 17 conquered species had declared independence. Most of them had done it peacefully, using negotiations and economic pressure instead of violence. They called it the human way, even though humans had been doing it for centuries. Earth had become the center of something completely unexpected, an alliance of problems. As the Cooperative Alliance, as they called themselves, included engineers, scientists, mechanics, and thinkers from across the galaxy. They didn't have the biggest ships or the most powerful weapons, but they had something more valuable. They knew how to fix things that seemed broken beyond repair. Day's sister Lena had graduated from the Lunar Academy and was now part of the Alliance's technical exchange program. She spent her time teaching human engineering principles to aliens whose technology was centuries ahead of Earth's. Stefani. Thing is, she had told Day during her last visit, they have all this amazing technology, but they never learn to improvise. When something breaks, they just replace it. They don't know how to make it work with spare parts and creativity. Young Ho, Day's old mentor, had been promoted to head of the new Galactic Repair Initiative. He spent his days coordinating maintenance teams across dozens of star systems. Who would have thought, Yang Ho said, that the galaxy needed mechanics more than warriors? But Day himself had turned down every offer to become an official diplomat, military leader, or government representative. He had one response to all such requests. I've got work to do. The work never stopped. Luna Station was busier than ever, serving as a hub for human-alien cooperation. New species arrived every week, eager to learn human problem-solving techniques. And every new species brought new technical challenges. Day, Park Min said, interrupting his thoughts. You have visitors. Day looked up to see Colonel Choi Jin and Dr. Han Yu walking toward him. They looked much more relaxed than they had 6 months ago. Let me guess, Day said. Another diplomatic crisis that needs a mechanic's touch. Actually, no, Dr. Han Yu said with a smile. We came to give you some news. The hegemony has officially requested to join the Cooperative Alliance. Day blinked. Seriously. Admiral Vexthera herself submitted the application, Colonel Choi Jin said. Apparently, they've had 17 system-wide infrastructure failures in the past month. Their technology is too rigid to adapt to rapid change. They need someone who can fix problems instead of just fighting them. Dr. Han, you added. They considered this. The galactic hegemony had once been humanity's greatest threat. Now they were asking for help, because their own success had made them inflexible. What did you tell them? He asked. We told them they could join, but they'd have to follow alliance principles. Colonel Choi Jin replied. Cooperation instead of conquest. Problem-solving instead of force. And they agreed. They didn't have much choice. Half their member worlds have already switched to alliance membership. The other half are considering it. Day picked up his plasma wrench and examined it thoughtfully. The tool was old and battered, but it had never failed him. Like many of the best solutions, it was simple, reliable, and effective. You know what the funny thing is? He said. The hegemony always thought strength was about having the biggest weapons and the most powerful armies. But real strength is about never giving up. About finding solutions when everyone else sees only problems. A few hours later, when his shift was over, Day walked to Luna Station's observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from dozens of different species docked at the station. Human vessels worked alongside alien craft, sharing technology and knowledge. In the distance, Earth hung in space like a blue marble. It looked the same as always, but Day knew it was different now. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. They were part of something bigger, a community of species that chose cooperation over conquest. His community beeped with a message from his sister. "Hey brother," Lena's voice said. "I'm teaching a class on improvised engineering to some Andromedans next week. Want to help? They're having trouble understanding how humans can fix quantum drives with mining equipment." Day smiled. "Send me the details," he replied. "I'll see what I can do." As he walked back to his quarters, Day passed a group of young humans and aliens working together on a broken gravity generator. The humans were showing the aliens how to use spare parts to create temporary solutions. The aliens were sharing advanced diagnostic techniques. It was exactly what the galaxy needed: different species learning from each other, solving problems together, building something better than any of them could create alone. Tomorrow, there would be new challenges. More systems to repair, more problems to solve, more seemingly impossible situations that needed creative solutions. But Day wasn't worried. After all, everything could be fixed if you hit it hard enough in the right place. And sometimes, the right place wasn't where you expected to find it. The galaxy had sent their greatest warriors to conquer humanity. Humanity had sent one angry mechanic with a wrench. And somehow, that had been exactly what everyone needed. In his quarters that night, Day hung his plasma wrench on its usual hook and prepared for sleep. Outside his window, the stars shone. With the light of 1,000 worlds, all of them working together to build something new. It wasn't the galaxy anyone had expected, but it was the galaxy they had built together, one repair at a time. And Lee Day, Chief Maintenance Officer of Luna Station and unofficial champion of the human way, fell asleep with a smile on his face, because tomorrow there would be more things to fix. And that was exactly the way he liked it.